Welcome to my channel where we question everything. Today's topic is an alternative viewpoint, and this is going to be part 4 of the series of trying to make sense of current affairs. Now, previously, I talked about the financial systems and the world debt. And here we're going to talk about the hatred, the Russophobia. Now, if you have watched the election, the recent midterm elections, I actually made a video about this and got a list of all the people that were taking part in to be elected for the Senate or the House of Representatives. And I noticed actually, it's all started with what's her name? God. What's her name? That went to Taiwan? Nancy Pelosi. Damn it, yeah. I just had it, and now I forgot it again. Anyways, Nancy Pelosi. Found out she's 82 years old. And then I looked a little bit deeper and so on. Then I found out a nice spreadsheet of all the House of Representatives and their ages. And there are about 350 of these members, and about 126 of them are older than 65. In fact, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 11 of them are older than 80, with the oldest one 87 years old. Then I can look at the ones between 70 and 80, and that's easily about, say, 20, no, probably about 40 of them, 50 about them. That's from 70 upwards. And when you actually looked at the result of the midterms, you will find there were some guys that were 93 years old and he was still being elected, and he died actually before he was elected, and the people still voted for him and for a dead candidate instead of a living candidate. And it was not an isolated incident. It was actually a couple of them that have died, and people voted for the dead people instead of for the living people. I couldn't understand that. Now, there's two problems with this. That if you are older than 70, then you were born about in 1950. And if you were born in 1950, then, say in 1970, you will be 20 years old. That's still the Soviet Union. We still have the Cold War. It was just past the Cuban missile crisis incident, nuclear war, Vietnam War, red. Okay, in South Africa we call it the red danger, the rooi gevaar, but that's a direct translation. And basically, you were still Soviet Union. No. We gotta be careful for them. And actually, Soviet Union is always associated with Russia. That's unfortunate because Russia is the biggest part, and even all the Warsaw Pact countries, they were just satellite countries. So everybody was concerned always about the Russians and the KGB. They didn't much talk about the other satellite countries, although they were part of it. Like East Germany and Polish and Hungary and Ukraine and I don't know. It's always the Russians, KGB. So all these people grew up with that age. So naturally, they will be Russophobic because that's how they spend most of their lives. And they were indoctrinated, and they were told the communists are coming, and the communists are coming, and the communists are going to take over our America. And then you will also find that people that lived in that age are very, very patriotic. They still believe in the old America and American values and Americans' exceptionalism. And America as a world dominant power. And America that basically was just fantastic and great, etc., etc. Now, as you get older, these life experiences become more and more settled in your conscious mind or unconscious mind, and it governs your reactions on how you make decisions. And the older you get, the more stubborn you get, and the more you stuck to your guns, the more you are controlled by your life experience. And that is anti-Russian and Russophobia. And that's why so much of the narrative that you listen, it still always refers back to the Soviet Union. And like Putin wants to regain the Soviet Union. And it wants to recreate the Soviet Empire. And it's all aggressive. You can see it in the propaganda. It's like constantly not getting to real terms, to the reality. I mean, Putin is not a supporter of the Soviet Union. He acknowledges their heritage and their culture, but it doesn't have the same ambitions or earmark any conquering or expansion of Russia itself. All he wants to do is trade and peaceful coexistence and trade and wealth and welfare for his people. That's all he wants to do. But if you listen to the American politicians, they stuck in the 1970s, 80s. And that is totally understandable. But one has to see it based on the age of what they are. And what amazes me that under normal circumstances, you are supposed, if you work, you're supposed to retire not later than 65 years old. Why? Because that's more or less the most productive, that's the end of your most productive part of a human being. After that, you became ill and you die and etc. And you become senile and you get all these age-old problems and so on. You are too stuck in your ways. You cannot adapt to new ways. You are living in the past. 65 is a good year. And now these people are going up to 80 years. By 80 years, you should have been dead already, but these people are still going on. So firstly, they are so stuck in their ways because they have grown up with the fear of Russophobia and Soviet Union. They cannot dissociate between Soviet Union and the modern Russia. They cannot adapt by the changes in the world politics. They cannot even recognize China. China is even worse. And they consider China as the biggest threat because it's the biggest country with the most people. But they actually got nothing to do with it. They're sitting on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. But they are a threat. So now something sort of threatens the core existence and the belief of these old people that still live in the 1970s, 1980s. Now think about this. If you had a granddad, do you still argue with your granddad? And how do you argue and tell your granddad about modern music, modern art, and the internet, and YouTube? And, you know, it's very difficult. People don't want to change. So you have to, these people will always see Russia as a threat, as a Soviet Union. And therefore, it's easy. You can see when the midterms, there was talk, when the Republicans take over the House or the Senate, they're going to stop the financial support to Ukraine. And what happened? Well, it was predictable. Financial support is still going to Ukraine. Weapons are still being delivered. In fact, more advanced weapons are now being delivered to Ukraine. And that started with the Patriot system. Well, no, it started actually with the NASAMS and all that, but let's forget about the Patriot system was always a no-no. Now it's a go. And then we hear about no tanks, no, Bradley fighting vehicles, and the Mortar fighting vehicle of Germany. And there's a number from when the French are delivering it. And just wait. Another couple of months, there goes the first Abram tank. And then the Tiger tanks. And then the Chieftains or whatever other tanks there are. Just a matter of time. Old people are slow to react. They take time to change. Fair enough. And then naturally you have these idiots. Well, not idiots, the fanatics. Like Lindsey Graham, John Bolton. And do you still remember John McCain? These are war hawks. They just want to make war. With your kids, by the way. If you listen to them, they are stuck in their ways. It's like being, okay, I don't know where I have to place them, but let's say far right, like fanatics, like these Azov battalions, like these neo-Nazis in the Ukraine, like the neo-Nazis in Germany, the real, in South Africa we have the AWB, okay, they're gone, but those were the far rights. They want to still retain the Boer identity, the Afrikaner Boer identity, the far right. Those people you cannot convince. They are aggressive and they are, want to make war. And the funny thing is actually that I saw John Bolton once on the show of Going Underground with Ashley Ratanzi. Now, Ashley Ratanzi is a very, very sharp guy. He asks the right questions, and if the narrative doesn't come through, he throws a backbone comment into it and then sort of settles the argument. Very, very intelligent person. And then John Bolton was on his show, and I listened to him. And John Bolton, I don't like him, make no mistake, but he had good arguments. And you will nail him, and he will come back with a different angle. Very difficult to argue against him. He's very sharp, very clever, knows a lot of things, and he was in the administration of the two Bushes and Obama, and now in Trump, it's even for a shorter period before he was chucked by Donald Trump. Because probably Donald Trump thought he's a little bit too aggressive, too much of the hawk. Well, those are the guys that also sit there in the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they're pushing them, and they're going to talk to their comrades. And, by the way, now I hear that John Bolton has made himself available for the next president, for the president election. Now, I thought that Hillary Clinton, if she ever won, World War III would have started. Well, luckily we got Donald Trump. Okay. Well, if John Bolton gets elected, we will have World War III. Because that is how that's the only way he thinks. And if you're not careful and you listen to his arguments, he might convince you. Very clever guy. But seems to me that they would say he has still a way to go. And just another thing is, if you think about this, I forget again, sorry about the names. But the new Speaker of the House of Representatives, how many votes did he had to go through? 15? 15 rounds of voting because there were a group of stubborn people, 20 guys, that didn't want to vote for him because they don't trust him. Took him 15 rounds to finally convince some of them. I don't know why, maybe by making some concessions or so, or agreeing, I don't know. But he swayed them, or other people swayed them. That means there's negotiation going on. And if John Bolton is there, he's going to convince a lot of people to increase and probably send F-16s to Ukraine. He's fanatic enough about that. But the fact that there were 15 rounds shows you that things are possible. And I think it's the first time in 100 years that it took more than one round to elect the speaker. So the people must really mistrust that new guy, whatever his name is. So the point here is that one can understand why the Americans are so anti-Russians and why the propaganda is so effective. Because a lot of people are still living in the past. And if my friend from Panama has told me is that the Americans are not very knowledgeable. They know what's going on at home, but they know nothing about world affairs. They're not dumb. They never learn what goes on in the rest of the world. So it's easy to sway them to do things. And I haven't seen a lot of new demonstrations or anything against the war in Ukraine. So, again, this is my third faction that I believe is driving the conflict in Ukraine and Russia, between Ukraine and Russia. It's the same thing that demand the loyalty from the European countries. It is the guys that will demand from Germany their self-destructive power. Because I will talk about this whole story about Germany and the Second World War. And then I will explain you more what was really happening there. And then hopefully you can understand why America has such a huge influence on the actions of the German nations and government. These people will demand it, and they are very vocal, and they are very, they call it, not intimidating. Well, you can say intimidating. They have a lot of oomph. In any case, that's my story for today. If you like what you heard, press the like button, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the word, ring the bell button, and until next time, cheers.